Alright, we are up to week 3 of public international law. I actually should have genuinely done this 2 weeks ago. I'm falling a bit behind on this one. But we're looking at treaties this week. Treaties, I pretty much like to think of them as contracts between countries. So that's probably the best way that it sits in my head, probably because I'm studying contracts as well, but also because the principles are kind of similar. Treaties are documents that are signed and concluded between international states in written form, governed by international law in the form that it is supposed to be in by what the agreement says. It used more mumbo jumbo, but it used different terms to describe that last part. But the reason why that last bit's included in my head is if, for example, I drafted an email and the email was a treaty, and I go send it to Yugoslavia or whatever. I don't know if that's a country actually. Let's say I send it to Kazakhstan and I say this email is intended to be a treaty, right? If it says that, then it's a treaty, right? If I get a stone tablet and then carve this stone tablet that represents a treaty, then it becomes a treaty. I'd imagine that contrary to that rule, although I'm not sure if this is the case, if I was to write an email, this does not conclude the treaty. Instead, I'll send a letter, and then all the you have to sign that letter for the treaty to be enforced. Then I imagine that the letter would be enforceable, not the email. Based on this last agreement here, but other than that, it's pretty much just a contract. So the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties is the main law that covers this. It goes for I don't even know how long, pretty much covers all the law around treaties. So any document that follows this standard here can be a treaty. So written minutes, Qatar v. Bahrain, or Bahrain, I don't know how they pronounce that. Affirms this, so they took minutes and then at the end both of them signed it, and then everything that was in there that they agreed upon became a treaty. Somalia, so memorandums of understandings, as long as they've got terms, as long as they're both signed, boom, it's treaty. Unilateral statements aren't treaties, though they can still be binding. Don't need to be in treaty form. If we look at sources of law, if you remember Australia versus France, that was sort of an example of this, where France were like, hey guys, we're not going to do any more nuclear testing near Australia. And now it's not a treaty per se, but it's still enforceable under other sources of law, just not the VCLT. So Article 7 outlines who can sign a treaty. It's generally the people with state power, or the process presumes that they have state power. So in Australia, I believe it's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So that's who can do it in Australia. In America, the Senate can, if 2/3 agree that they're going to sign a treaty, or the President can just override that. That's why I've got Trump got out of the Paris Agreement, and then Biden got back in, and then Trump got back out. That happened because the President can just decide to do that. In Australia, it is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, as I said. Either you have state power, or you are the head of state, or Minister of Foreign Affairs. Or if you're the head of a diplomatic mission with the power. Representatives don't need the full power of the country to sign a treaty. Ministers can delegate their power. Ministers can delegate their power. So if our Minister of Home Affairs decided that he's going to give me a written letter empowering me to make treaties on behalf of the country, then provided I can prove that, I can give a letter that says, hey guys, this gives me the power to make a treaty, then I have the power to sign treaties under Article 7 of the VCLT. The Department of Foreign Affairs and its minister conclude, pretty straightforward. Article 61 of the Constitution outlines the Australian policy for that. There's a whole way of doing it, but I wasn't really bothered with getting into that. It's something like a 7-step process in Australia. Invalidity. So it can either be relatively invalid or absolutely invalid. So relatively invalid basically means, sitting in contract terms, it means that it's voidable. So if the treaty was formed and it came with some errors, let's say printing errors or grammar errors or whatever, then you can correct those and then the treaty can still be enforced, or not. Fraud. So if someone lied, but then we're all cool with the lie, it turns out, then the treaty can still be enforced. State corruption. So if what's a really corrupt? Let's say hypothetically that Australia was a corrupt state, and it tried to make a treaty with England, and then England realised, whoa, Australia, you guys were kind of corrupt when you made this. England can either void the contract or they can not. It's up to them. Absolute factors are ones where there was just never a treaty at all, completely invalid. These factors that will make a treaty voidable include coercion, threat/use of force, or a violation of just Kogan's. If you remember in here, just Kogan's peremptory norms. So if the treaty, basically, like in contract terms, if we're making a treaty on something illegal, then it can never be valid. That's basically what that means. It'll come under 48, 49, 50. So 48, 49, 50. I think 46 and 47 include some other terms, which relate to relative invalidity, and then 51, 52, 53 are absolute validity factors. Article 18, you can't act contrary to the treaty. So this is kind of like the principle of equitable estoppel in contracts, just using contract terms. So if I say I'm going to do something, if I'm like, yeah, don't worry guys, I will definitely give you guys 100,000 cows by the end of the year, and then I go out and start killing all the cows in my paddock, then I would be in violation of Article 18, assuming assuming on the track I won't have enough cattle to sell you. Article 25, all content within a treaty is valid if it's in the treaty or if the parties agree through a third party method. Yep, so again, if we're using contract terms, I don't know if we looked at express terms yet in any of my videos, but basically, like if I write in the contract, if I write in the treaty, hey guys, we will agree to allow you to fly under the rules stipulated in the what was the thing called? Aviation Association or whatever it was. Sorry, let me just take a look. I'll get this right. The International Civil Aviation Organization, right? So if I was going to say, hey guys, I'll send you some planes, but they have to be in accordance with the standards in the International Civil Aviation Organization. Well, seeing as though I've just off-sourced it, assuming you agree, then we now have to follow the rules in that organization as well. Could also mean, hey guys, this treaty includes terms that I'll write in an email, next week on Thursday, and then I send over the email, and then even though you signed the treaty then, the email still comes into force. So what that means, it's all within the treaty, or if the parties agree to more terms outside of the treaty, then those terms are still valid as part of the treaty under Article 18. Article 31, treaties are interpreted with their ordinary meaning, considering context and purpose. That pretty much spells it out right there. What this doesn't mean though is if I it's not limited to everything that's written. So we haven't looked at express terms yet, but I'll publish the video soon. Things like what's the parole evidence rule, which basically says that everything that's in the contract concludes the whole contract. That's not a thing in international law. So when the thing is written, when the thing is made, they'll look into where the countries were at the time, the context, the prior negotiations, all that kind of stuff to determine how a treaty should be interpreted. Article 32 basically says something similar. External information surrounding the treaty formation can be used. Reservations. So a reservation is if I offer my treaty, and then you say I agree to all of it except the part where you say that the cows have to be white. I want brown cows instead, right? So if we do that, if there is a reservation, under contract law, that's just a counteroffer. I agree to most of this, but we're going to scrap the whole thing and then I'm going to make a new offer. That's not how it's deemed in treaty law. It's more like, here's the whole thing, and I will agree to this much of it and not agree to this much of it. So that's a unilateral statement in which, I representing Australia, let's say I'm representing Australia, you're representing England, and you say, I will sell you 100,000 eggs for $100,000, right? And then you say, the eggs will be brown. And I say, whoa, I don't want to do that, I want white eggs. Me saying I want white eggs is a reservation, and it's a unilateral statement against a clause in the treaty, in which case brown eggs are what you're selling, which is what I object to. So Article 20 covers this. Generally, if you say, yeah, sure, I'll sell you some white eggs, then that's fine, that's valid. If you say, no, that's not the case, then there's no treaty. For multiple parties, only one state needs to accept the reservation and all others act on the treaty for the reservation to be... So let's say we're doing a three-way trade route where you sell me 100,000 eggs, I sell Bulgaria 100,000 cows, and Bulgaria sends you... $100,000, right? If let's say it's the same thing, you say I've got brown eggs, I said no, I want white eggs. I'm not really sure about the philosophy behind this, but if Bulgaria says yeah, sure, I can agree to the white eggs thing, and then Bulgaria starts to make their trade, and then England starts to make their trade, then the reservation is allowed. I hope that makes sense. I hope I did a good job of explaining that. Furthermore, in Article 20, although I didn't write this in, if you don't object to my reservation, the reservation is generally considered valid. You've got 12 months to object after the treaty's been made. Yeah, something to that effect. Probably just double check that fact there. But yeah, that's treaty law. I hope that made sense, and I will see you in the next one.